So hi everyone. I'm here with Professor Armstrong, and we'll be doing the interview for the professor interview for the South African Summers Abroad course. So to start off, my name's Leon. I am a third year at Raman Commerce, specializing in accounting. And Professor, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ann Armstrong, and I did my PhD at Rotman and have taught at Rotman for many, many years. My specialty area is social entrepreneurship. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been the director of one of the 11 accelerators on campus. And the one that I'm actively involved is called iCube, and iCube is the accelerator at the UTM campus.
I see, lovely. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, and we'll just get started with a bit on the course. What the South African Summers Abroad is about.
Yeah. Many years ago, our course partners from Reciprocity Consulting wrote to me and said, could we perhaps do a course together? I think they were expecting MBA students. I said, well, I think probably working with my colleagues in commerce, it might work really well if we did the South Africa course as a commerce course. And that seemed to work with my wonderful colleagues in South Africa. And so our first offering was, I guess now 10 years ago, just depending on how you count, with the year we missed and so on, but I'll go with 10. Others say 9. And a small number of us went and had some extraordinarily rich learning and also some significant drama in the first year. And even though we had some significant drama, as in being robbed at gunpoint,
Wow.
the university was very game to have us continue. We all handled it extremely well. The students, I'm still in touch with a few of them. And that year we had everyone from engineering students to African studies students to a few commerce students. And it was a little bit trial by fire in terms of the drama, but the learning of working directly with micro entrepreneurs at the foundation in the townships was very powerful.
Mm. And in terms of the class size, is there a rough idea so far or historically?
I think in our first year we might have been 12, and now it's capped at 20. And the reason it's capped is not in any way to be exclusionary, but it's not that easy to find micro entrepreneurs who are essentially necessity entrepreneurs to give up time away from their business to work with a team of 4 or 5 students. So our partners at Reciprocity spend a lot of time trying to find micro entrepreneurs who have the capacity to give up time and are at a stage in their entrepreneurial journey that they would find some value in working with a team of students.
Mm. And just to add to that point, this is a very unique program where
Yes.
you're working directly, like you said, with micro entrepreneurs. So how would you say this differs from a typical, UFT lecture-based course?
Oh, not even close in terms of, I don't know that there's any. The only similarity, I suppose, is that I give classes at the beginning where we are, either in person or online. We're talking about understanding what's going on in South Africa. And many mornings, once we are in South Africa, our partners, Pierre and Nico from Reciprocity Consulting, bring in guests. So we have perhaps a session from a person whose name is Stephen Coe, who talks about the role of China in Africa, and that's an extremely contentious issue. So he comes in and gives us some insight. We also have an amazing couple of classes on impact finance. So there is kind of and I wouldn't say they're traditional in the sense that you don't just sit there bored out of your mind as somebody lectures at you, but rather the participants we get are very good facilitators do a lot of interaction. So that's not every morning, though. At least 5 of the sessions on site involve are the students working directly with their micro entrepreneurs. We also take students out on, I guess the North American term is field trips. The students go into the townships, meet people who live in the townships, and have what the kind of a learning journey, a full day to understand what life is really like. So they might go into a shack and find that 5 people live in there. I remember once a student, he didn't need to be embarrassed, but he was. He said he had to go to the bathroom. But of course, there's no bathroom. So the bathrooms are public latrines further out. And that I think was culturally quite shocking for him because this as a shack was pretty well set up. I mean, it had a washing machine, it had electricity. So, but those are the learnings that are profound. That something as simple as just having to go to the bathroom becomes a culturally nuanced experience.
Yeah, no, I think the great thing about summers abroad is the fact that all you're learning about the culture as well, specifically for business, right? Being able to immerse yourself within the community gives you such a more in-depth understanding
Yeah.
of the community that you're trying to help, and I think it's a really great opportunity for students to who wants to get that one step further to understand and tackle the places where they're trying to solve the issue with. And
Yeah, I
sorry,
was just, I don't know that I think I don't know that we're actually trying to help. I think that if you ask the students, they'll tell you that they learn more than they taught.
mm,
Uh, and I think that it's really more, that's why we use language like learning journeys and so on, because it really is a mutual kind of process where new ideas, new outcomes, new action suggestions may arise. But like any, I think, good consulting, ultimately, it's really about a kind of a co-created solution. And one of the things that I ask students not to talk about is help, but is to look at kind of a model of co-creation, and we unfortunately don't hang around for the implementation, but certainly the buy-in will be much higher if there is genuine co-creation, because some of our ideas are ludicrous, and we're very lucky with our colleagues at Reciprocity, because at the very end, the very final day is very moving, where the teams present to their micro entrepreneurs, and our colleagues make sure that what they present is doable and sensible. There's no point in a team of commerce students going on and on and on about strategy when that's not relevant, when people are still trying to, put food on the table.
mm.
So it's I'm sorry to jump on you about this, but I think helping is the wrong kind of concept. I think the concept is co-creation, and maybe an idea or two will come.
Oh, that it is good to clear these things up and gives students an idea of what they will be doing. I guess from there, what do you think are the key learning outcomes that you hope that students achieve by the end of the program? Both in their academic journey as well as their understanding of the global social challenges, especially in South Africa.
Yeah, my main kind of hope from the course is, yes, that they understand what you call the global social challenges, but ultimately, I'm really hoping that students learn some humility and realize how very privileged they are, and to stop kind of the sort of the greed is good ideology that I see particularly in commerce students. But certainly humility, and also an awareness of how what somebody might see as poverty in one jurisdiction is very different, but that doesn't mean that the people in the townships are not dignified. They're very dignified. They're so enthusiastic. And as one of my colleagues said, we in North America have nothing. We can't teach hustle to people at the global South. They know hustle better than anything we've ever experienced. So they're ready. They just want a few tools. We're not teaching them entrepreneurship. I mean, they're teaching us about entrepreneurship. And, it's not every day that you meet an entrepreneur who, gets stuck up at gunpoint. I mean, that doesn't generally happen here.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I think a lot of us who are born in North America sometimes we forget how privileged we are to be in a society where, electricity and running water is taken for granted.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then when we have like a power failure or something here, whereas there, if they have power, that's neat. And when you look
yeah.
at townships, most of the power is personally wired. So you look up and
Oh.
there's thousands of power lines, but they also catch on fire.
Mm.
There's no like certified electrician doing all this. It's people who live there. So fires are an acute hazard because one of your electrical wires that was not wired properly to give you that little bit of electricity may suddenly catch on fire.
Oh, that's something I've never actually thought about.
Well, why would you though? That's the
Yeah.
point. When you go down there and you might think it's so ugly, all those wires. Why aren't they under the ground? It's because people are wiring up their own solutions.
Yeah. No, I think this would definitely give students a great opportunity to see beyond sort of
Yes,
the facade of like what is the true problems that we have.
exactly.
Um,
I'll put.
yeah. Yeah. So moving on, again, we've talked about a lot about, being very hands-on, working with
Yes.
the micro entrepreneurs. Could you give a more specific example of how exactly are they interacting with
Yeah.
these micro entrepreneurs?
Yeah. The most important point is that each team has assigned on a cultural navigator.
Mm.
The cultural navigator also knows the entrepreneur very well. And it may be that the cultural navigator may have actually found this entrepreneur. So the students will meet, as I said, routinely with the team, with the micro entrepreneur, with the cultural navigator. And then they have the first day is just like you would in any consulting engagement, do some relationship building. But it's where it's different is that it's deeply personal. And people talk about their backgrounds and so on and so on in a way that you wouldn't expect in a North American context. And they talk about family and so on. And that also, quite interestingly, often on the first day, there's a lot of discussion about money, how much money they don't make, what their aspirations are, how that they need the money to buy uniforms for their school kids, and so on and so on. So that first day, to use consulting jargon, is sort of relationship building. And the model that we use is called inclusive consulting, as the title says, and it's because of the trying to reduce the sense of marginalization and othering and to build strong relationships with the micro entrepreneur. And often the relationships become so strong that on the last day when they give their presentation, and we call it handover, a great emotion, like unbelievable. Most students are crying, micro entrepreneurs tearing up. And that would be pretty unusual if you were at Deloitte and you suddenly started tearing up at the end of your engagement. Presumably, if you were at Deloitte, you'd be thinking, okay, let me upsell to the next job, not. So it's really powerful. But they also, to again use consulting jargon, flight test their ideas. I teach a course on consulting. So they flight test their ideas en route. And in addition to being guided by their cultural navigator, our partners, Pierre and Nico, let's say we have 5 teams of 4 students. Nico would be in charge of mentoring 3 of the 5, and then Pierre the other 2. So they have really, and then the instructors like me. So they have a huge support network, the students, I mean, both in terms of the stress, because students clue in pretty quickly that this is for real. This isn't some academic case where we go, oh, okay, who cares? We'll fire that person, do that, and so on. And the other thing is that it is for their livelihood. It's not like some side hustle. And so the students can get a little bit overwhelmed. And also, they're in a context that's so foreign to them that they start to think, oh my God, what if we screw this up? And that's reasonable fear. But we make sure that with this huge support network, that they're not giving kind of throwaway advice.
Mm. I think it's good that you mentioned how, students are not just thrown into these scenarios,
Oh, no.
completely blind, but they have all of the support, whether it be the mentors, the cultural guidance that they
Yes.
receive. It's good because, being a new country in of itself is challenging. And,
Yes.
especially with this course, how it's structured with, having, like you said, like the real life implication of, these entrepreneurs' livelihood is like on the line. It could be a lot of pressure, but it's good to hear that they have all of these supports. And I guess from there, do they get introduced right away to their micro entrepreneur, or is it like
Yeah.
lecture and then like the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks?
Yeah, how we have set it up is that we every year we get a customized website where it's usually Nico who speaks some Xhosa, as actually does Pierre. And so he will create a website with videos of the 4 or 5 micro entrepreneurs. The students will have, quote, met them virtually before we begin. So in this case, April 30th or whatever the date is. The students then can also, if they have, let's say, some preference, or they perhaps have some relevant information, then they can select which micro entrepreneur that they'd like to work with. That usually it's a non-issue. Students sign up. I've only ever had one student who did some trading with another to work with a different micro entrepreneur. But overall, it falls out easily. You just put people sign up. They say, I want to work with this person who does hair extensions, say. And certainly it's never been I haven't really experienced, luckily, severe team issues.
Mm. Well, that's great to hear. They're able to choose and get an idea of who they might be working with before. So they're
And
a
they
lot
also
more. Sorry, go
So
ahead.
they also have some pre-reads from our partners. I don't know if the students do them, but they certainly watch with great care the videos to try to get a better understanding both of the people they're working with and also perhaps a preference.
Mm. Yeah, I think moving on, I think we've talked a lot about the different challenges students face while being in a new environment, whether that be working with an entrepreneur from a very different background. Um, how would you say that a student can best prepare for this experience? Are there specific exercises, readings, or something outside that they could do to better their overall experience and learning opportunities to really maximize that this summers abroad?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, they get all the readings and so on from me and from Pierre and Nico and so on. I think the biggest way to prepare is not so much about the readings and so on, but is to park their egos,
Mm,
and also to be open to the fact that what they might think is, let's say, quote, poor, is absolutely not. And the most successful students have just been open to kind of going with the flow. The more preconceived notions that people can remove from themselves, the better. So
mm,
go with an open mind and also go with a lot of humility. Here are people working and living in not easy circumstances who are providing for their families and often doing very well and talking with great pride about how they were able to pay for their kids to go to uni and so on and so on. So to go with open-mindedness, humility. There used to be an old beer commercial, open your mind, something might fall in. Of course, it was for beer, but leaving that aside, I think that's really the way they have to go and park whatever North American and global North ideas they have because they're really not useful.
Mm, definitely. I think, I did summers abroad in, I guess, in terms of the business one, I did the one in South Korea, the business model campus. Yeah, with Professor Kwon. Um, and I can say just from talking to you, it's a very different experience where ours is, I would say, incredibly sheltered from the realities that is
No,
like,
this is not sheltered.
yeah. So I think I would say like it's definitely a different experience. I would say it's a huge challenge to,
Yeah.
go into this environment. But I think from what you say, being open-minded is definitely the key here to
Yes.
really throw away all of your preconceptions about, what life is supposed to be and accept, what life really is for, millions of people around the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
um, I guess from that point, this is a consulting sort of course. It is a MGT RSM course, so it is a business course.
Yes.
To be successful here, do you necessarily need to have any prior business knowledge or you know,
No, but it's always helpful to have one or two actually accounting students because some of the work might be setting up records, I mean, and so on. But ultimately, I don't think it matters because I spend some time at the front end working through with the students, and I'm just looking it up. The learnings from Peter Block's Flawless Consulting book, which is sort of the Bible of consulting, I think. Uh, that isn't like a consulting firm mark, just a general book on consulting. And Pierre and Nico both have MBAs, and I have an MBA. And so between all of us, I think we can, figure it out. But what's really interesting is that, and you won't want to write this down. I mean, I don't care, but you won't want to. And certainly Lorraine won't want you to write this down. Is that sometimes the Rotman students, because they think they've got all the financial stuff sorted out, they're a pain in the ass because they're busy solving problems that don't exist. Because after all, they know all this stuff. And so I actually had one student, I'll never forget it. He said to me, considering this is an MGT course, it's absolutely not right that non-Rotman students are in the course. So I gave him a piece of my mind.
I think what to that point, I think what makes summers abroad great is, Raman being very isolated from rest of the campus and majors.
I'm
This
kidding,
isn't
like a cult.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for students to work beyond, the normal business mindsets. And I know from my experience, working with non-business majors just bringing a whole new perspective that I would have never thought about.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that we had one student who and she's gone off and become a CPA. She was doing stats, and she was helpful to everyone. That's the other point I haven't done a good job representing to you, Leon. All the students are expected to help one another.
Mm.
So in maybe it was the first or second year, we had an architecture student, and one of the micro entrepreneurs had uh, a, a bedding business, and what do you call the things that you attach to the not a crate, a great thing that you attach to the end of a truck?
A trailer or
Kind of,
fender.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, where you put stuff in.
Yeah.
So in any event, one of the issues he noticed was that the layout was screwed up in terms of efficiency. So, and that team also had two engineering students. So we had a commerce, engineering, architect, and probably another student from African Studies. So they took this and completely rearranged the inside of his shop. And it became much, much more efficient because they had many tools and techniques that they could optimize space. And what was nice about it is they didn't make it a big deal like, ooh, we know about space optimization. They just worked and both intellectually and physically created a much, much, much more efficient shop that allowed him to be able to interact more. And they created a workstation, like literally, not just the drawings. Drawings turned into action. And that was wonderful because suddenly he had a lot more space than he realized. So those are the very hands-on solutions that come from different people working together.
Yeah, well, that's wow, that's amazing. I think this course would really bring out the best in students. Sometimes we're, UFT is a very theoretical school where we learn all of these things, but we don't actually know how to apply it when it comes
Right.
to that. But I think with this course, being able to work with micro entrepreneurs who are willing to one accept help, but also given the opportunity for students to display their own skills, their theoretical, and put it really into practice. I think that's one of the best appeals to the Summers Abroad course
Yeah.
that students should consider, right? Um, yeah, I think from there, that's all of the prepared questions that I have. I guess one last thing, if there's one, essential insight or perspective. I know you already talked about, humility and talked about, perspective, but if there's just one thing that you want students to take home from the program, from their 1 month in South Africa, what would that be? And why do you think that from sort of your professional opinion, even as a professor?
Yeah, I think to me, the most important thing I hope that when people leave the program is that they make personal, whatever it is, personal commitments to some actions of social justice, whatever it is. And I think that it's very well and fine to go and have a 1 month experience. It is very powerful. It's very moving. As I said, people get very emotional, very attached. But ultimately, the question is, so what? To me, putting it on my CV. Oh, I went and did South Africa. Isn't that cool? Certainly, their consulting skills could be used more broadly. No question about that practically. But I really, really hope that students walk away and say, okay, what can I do, however modest, to address the endless social injustices that we see either in our country of origin or in other places?
That's that's a really powerful message, and I think it's something very difficult to really understand unless you've been in the scenarios to really feel the injustice and actually
Yes.
understand. Because we read about the news about injustices from all over the world, and it happens constantly. But I think it doesn't necessarily leave as much as an impact as if you were to be there and actually experience it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I mean, even just think of, I mean, as I mentioned, cultural navigators, so central to the program. One age 23, I think, tried to stop a fight in his township, Kailicha. He was murdered. And the next year, I had to tell the students they were devastated because they were so close to him. A couple of years ago, one of our super favorite cultural navigators, I don't know why she decided to go to Johannesburg, but she died there of COVID. So things that affect us deeply. Another wonderful cultural navigator, he died recently of blood cancer. And it's not just the death, which is horrifying enough, but these three were supporting their families, many of which are very large. And so they were there in the Western Cape sending remittances to their family members in the Eastern Cape. On the other hand, we had another partner, not a navigator, who essentially franchised her shack from the Western Cape to the Eastern Cape. And she offered kind of building supplies. She had no idea how much money she was making until an accounting student made her start to think about this. So, there are many great stories, but it's the human suffering that, at least in my case, sticks a little bit with me.
mm, definitely, yeah. Um, yeah, that's the rest. That's all of the interview questions, I guess. This is this is a chance. Do you have like maybe a favorite memory? Field trips, or if you want to say anything to students watching, encourage them to take this course. Um, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, I think what I would really encourage students to do is to uh, look beyond any stereotypes that they might have about South Africa, and to look at this as an opportunity to learn a lot, and also to perhaps move to taking some kind of social justice approach in their own lives.
Yeah, no, that's, I think from a business perspective, we're always, trying to figure out, how to maximize, revenue, how to maximize profit, but we fail to see the human side of things.
No kidding.
Uh, I think that's what makes business students especially very numb to
Yes.
the world around us, because all we see is, the dollar signs on top of everyone's heads as opposed to them as an individual.
Yeah. Yeah,
It,
I taught a course, Environmental and Social Responsibility, that I designed at the request of students many years ago. And it was really interesting. I gave it away with great sadness. But it was so amazing to me what students had never heard of before. I'm going on about B corporations. What? Oh, the donut model of the economics? Indigenous economy, $1 billion, huh? And that's not the fault of the students. Absolutely, it is not. But I was amazed. And this course also attracted environmental studies students. So we had a little bit of a mixture. But I must say that it was eye-opening, and we didn't even go anywhere. So, but what's the guy's name? Adam Storr. He's taken it over. So we'll see how it goes. But it was just like South Africa came kind of through commerce. The environmental and social responsibility course was a direct ask by students. And I'm always a sucker for new courses. So I said, sure, I'll put it on. And I got to meet a lot of commerce students who were feeling like they didn't fit in, but at least they felt okay in the course.
yeah,
So are you coming to South Africa?
sorry?
Are you coming to South Africa?
No. Unfortunately, I don't have time this year, although I wish I would have found out about the South African course, before. It sounds incredibly interesting. I think you have done a wonderful job of creating such an amazing course and all the support behind it.
Well, I want to give full credit to Nico and Pierre. If you look them up, reciprocityconsulting.co.za, I believe. And I've never seen a consulting firm that has pictures of shacks on their website, but that really gives you a feeling of their values, what they stand for, and their modesty, their humility. And I think that's important to highlight, because without them, this course would not have happened. It also would not have happened without the support of the previous managing director, Deanne Saunders, who was central in kind of increasing the social and environmental responsibility elements in commerce.
Yeah, it's truly a field that don't get talked enough, don't get talked about enough in
Oh, no, not
commerce.
even not even ESG, which couldn't be more corporate. Uh,
Yeah.
and there are lots of problems now, we know, of course, with ESG, but yeah, no, we still have our work cut out at commerce. And in my upcoming 464, I put every other week we talk about social justice issues. Even I link to the actual course material, which is about organizational design.
Mm. Let's